Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Practical Pet Chat. But this one is a little bit different. This is for our pet business folks. And the reason we're doing a separate podcast is that both Lorin and I have been in the industry for a very long time. Different levels of success, different levels of products, all these wonderful things we've experienced. And we really appreciate those of you who have been reaching out saying, hey, can you spend some time talking about the business side of things in the pet world? We know these are challenging times. And so we thought, why not? Let's create something separate just for you folks. Though anybody and everybody's welcome to listen. So thanks again for joining us for this. Lorin, I'm excited about this because
Me too.
the business side of things in the pet world has changed a lot over the last 5 years,
Oh my
and
gosh.
exponentially. So, just from your viewpoint, where do you think we are today? This natural evolution from when you started to where we are now, things are going to change. But I just feel like it has been a monumental change in the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's a different kind of a change because when, I had my store for almost 20 years and there's change that just comes with, changes of how people incorporated their pets into their lives and,
Sure.
changes in what people were looking for at the store level to what it is now. And it's a little bit concerning, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because I think that the industry, there's always been the case of mergers and acquisitions where companies swallow up other companies, not to the degree that we're seeing currently. And the
Yeah.
concern for me on that, just having been a retailer, um, there's a there's been a few distributors of late in the last few years that have been purchased by other distributors and other ones that have gone away. When you're a retailer, the the fewer options you have from which to order, the fewer opportunities you have to be competitive. The other part of that too is the prices of everything that is going up. Transportation is going up, trucking is going up, delivery is going up, price of goods is going up, um, overhead is going up, the cost of employees, and it's always gone up. It seems to be on this skyrocket in the last couple of years that it's just the acceleration of the increases are pretty profound. And when you're an independent business, that's really difficult to deal with. When you're a chain, it's difficult to deal with because while you have more buying power when you're a chain and you can get better prices, you are still, there's still a level of that hitting you as well. And I have worked for a chain of pet stores, and my background personally has been as an independent store owner and a micro independent at that. Um, but all of the industry interests me, so I've watched all of it as it's come together, and I'm worried about what the trends that I'm seeing and the increased costs of things, because I think that's just going to take its toll on the independents and going to narrow opportunities, not just at a business level, but also at a consumer level. And none of that is good. The more competition, the better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's one of the hidden values and gems in the industry is the independence. And when you think about it too, it's it's that proving ground for a lot of new product ideas that come out. And so not having as many uh, pathways, and I know a lot of folks out there are like, well, now we can go direct to consumer. Yeah, but keep this in mind. When we had the independence there, it wasn't just about getting your product seen by customers. You were getting great feedback. I remember launching products years ago, and the independents and their feedback, same thing as you just mentioned, the independent distributors, their feedback was immensely critical, immensely helpful to really getting to where you wanted the products to be. And I think having lost some of that, and I really, I think, that's inevitable. We're going to see shifts in ebbs and flows and things. But I think the double hammer there of the pandemic and what it did to also take away that brain drain, as I call it, of those folks who have been at these places for so long. They were part of the community, they knew all the different folks. You went there not because necessarily they had the best price. You went there because they had the best knowledge.
Right.
They knew the history of your pets, things of all that. That has been severely diminished, and I know the challenges continue to cascade over them. And like you, I'm concerned about it.
Well, we used to say, and this was much more prevalent before 5 years ago. We used to say that every brand was built on the back of independence because, you know, as independents, we're the first ones to see something brought to market. We're the first ones to give it a try. We're the first test market. As you said, we provide all the feedback. We weigh in on the packaging, on the verbiage, on the feedback from the consumer, on, every aspect of it, how it feeds, how it smells, how it's consumed, how it wears, whether or not it's appropriately made, if it falls apart. I remember a manufacturer promising me that they had a completely indestructible toy. And I looked and I was like, oh, why do you even say that? Because you're just asking for trouble. Nope, nope, nope. We stand behind it. And I said, send me enough toys to hand out to some customers and I'll get you the feedback. And the toys got destroyed. And I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm out. And they were happy I was out because they didn't want to deal with me because I didn't buy into it right away. I needed to test market it. But that's what independents do. We want to know
Right.
something works before we're going to carry it. We only have so much money and so much room and are willing to take X number of chances, and there has to be a return on it. So we're super critical. We're super dialed in to everything that we're going to carry. And there's a huge advantage to that from the consumer point of view. You can buy something on any large online platform, but when it doesn't function properly, it doesn't wear well, it doesn't whatever, call the seller of the product on that big platform and see what kind of help you're going to get, if you can even get to
Right.
anybody. There
Right.
isn't any. It's the sale is made, cha-ching, move on. And that is not the experience when you're dealing with independents. They're there to last. They're feeding their families. They're part of the community. They're donating. They're supporting shelters and rescues. They're supporting their police dogs, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a completely different ballgame. And you do get some of that with the chains as well. There's a lot of chains that are doing their variations of those kinds of things. But it's unfortunate. I can remember when chains wanted to emulate the indies. Um, Certain chains would show up in my store every so often and walk around, and I knew who they were, and they always said great store, but you could see them talking amongst themselves about
Right.
certain products and the way things were merchandised and that kind of thing. And I didn't have any issue with it at all because I wanted everybody to do well. And people who are going to shop at the chains if they were going to shop with me, they were going to shop with me. If they were going to shop with the chains, they were going to shop with the chains. And I think people
Right.
need those options and choices. And I also was aware that the chains were not going to do what I was going to do at the level that we were going to do it in my store.
Right.
Um, but that has changed because now where you used to be able to walk into chains and there was help and qualified people that could talk about a brand, whether or not the information was fed by the brand themselves as talking points or whatever it was, you had people to interact with. Now they have cashiers,
Yeah,
and that's
it's
it.
really a shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting because I recently had to go get something for our bearded dragon. And I will freely admit I'm not a bearded dragon expert. And it was funny. I grabbed my youngest daughter and I said, "Hey, mom's out of town, but we got to go get some, stuff to feed Gaia, who is our bearded dragon." And Gaia pancake Lloyd, because my family has a very interesting way of naming things. I guess we all get to choose a name. But that all being said, what my initial thought was, where do we even go for this? Because I only know the one reptile store, and I don't think we're going to get there before they close. And thankfully, my daughter, was pretty up on all this, and she usually is. And she's like, "Oh, you know what? There's this one store over there. It was not a big box chain store, and thank God, because when we got there, I was trying to explain like, hey, this is what we're feeding and this and that, um, but we like to rotate, and they were like, oh, it'd be good. And we just got some in, and here's why this is. And there's three different sizes. And I was like, wow, I am totally coming here anytime I need to get that. So your point of if it had just been a cashier, then, I'm going to have to, do my best. But that's not what I wanted. I had a great experience
Right.
and I was informed. And here's why you might want to think about this as opposed to that. And it was one of those things where we were talking about on the ride home. I said, you know what? That's a really good store. And one I would go back to without any hesitation because they had people there that could answer questions. And they, by the way, they weren't a specific reptile store. That
Mhm.
was the other unique thing about it to me. I expected that at the reptile store that we go to, where they are reptile centric, etc. This was a store that had many different things for all different species, and they had a section. And I'll be blunt. I at one point I was like, oh, I'm not sure if they're going to have it, ops, my daughter, and she's like, no, I know they do. It's in the back corner, and I was like, oh, great, you know. And yet immediately someone came over and was like, hey, can we help you? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. Here's what's going. So that brain drain that I referenced earlier, I've experienced it so often now that I've almost conditioned myself to be super surprised and overwhelmed in a positive experience when someone knows. I think if we were talking about that 5 years ago, it would have been,
Mhm.
well, of course they should know that, Rob. But that has slipped away for some reason.
It
Uh,
really has. It's disappointing. Silly me. I just expect that when you walk into a small business, that they should know their business
yeah,
and they should know their products and they should know how to communicate with you and they should give a shit, frankly.
yeah.
They should actually want to help you and want to, and it doesn't matter, I mean, we're talking about the pet industry, which makes it even more so that they care, that they should care. But really, if you're going to take the time to get into business, I think that you should be dialed into, what your products are and your philosophy and not just be there to hear the ching of the register. And
Well, I was going to say too, like I think one of the other things that you did, I know you did, I know many others, and I participated with some of them, was it wasn't just a testing ground though too, it was also an educational ground.
yeah,
I feel like that has almost completely disappeared.
yeah,
Uh, but I used to go, I went with you to certain things that were
yep.
hosted. You were a part of it. Um, where you're hosting these educational seminars and this and that. And that's not to say that there aren't different ways that we could do it now. And so, one of the things that when I get asked from these small businesses, um, because that's where I, really found my footing when I was first getting going. So I have that strong affinity for them. But I would say to them, I'm like, just because the market has shifted, your resources have shifted, doesn't mean your passion, doesn't mean your knowledge has shifted. And one of the things that I will call out, and whenever your left earlobe is burning, that's me talking about you. I'll say I would drive an hour plus to go to this particular store because I knew when I got there, if I had any questions, not only could the owner answer it, but the people that worked for her had great knowledge as well. And yet you would also do things online, and you have your group on Facebook and all that stuff. And I think there's this weird disconnect that's happened right now for folks where they feel like I either have to only communicate online or I can only communicate in person to show my value. And it's this mix. Bring it all together. And I think one of the other things that's great that you did too that I share is trying not to be so reactionary. We're also polarized in society, and I see someone will post one thing, and it's like you have to pick a side real quick. And I just like to be like, whoa, let me get some more info here because
Right.
there's always 73 sides to every story, and I'm only reading whatever someone wanted me to read, and I know there's more to it. So one of my things is just like I know you've got less time, you've got less resources than you probably have had in a long time, but show them your expertise, show them where you really stand out. You don't have to be an expert in everything. Um, you don't have to be the most knowledgeable because someone's always more knowledgeable. I love when people are, I'm the most, I'm the this, I'm the that. Um, I'm just trying to connect with your information. And if I trust your information, I'm going to do business with you. And that's where I think we've lost that momentum. I think for a long time we all took a lot of pride in growing our knowledge and coming together and sharing. Like, did you know this? Did you know that? And it's weird. I don't know. What's your thought on that?
It's definitely gone away. I was super disappointed when I moved and went to the stores locally to find how little interaction there was. I was coming in as a customer, and I don't know how you sell somebody something for their animal when you don't ask them any questions. I mean, it's one thing if they come in and they're asking for this brand, this flavor, this size, whatever. But so many people have, they need more help beyond that. And I think that there needs to be a genuine line of questioning on the part of the business in order to get the client what they may not even know they need. I mean, it isn't just about my least favorite thing to hear um, when you walk into a store is, "Hi, can I help you?" Okay, I just walked in the store. Let me look around. I don't really know what I want. I want to see what you got, whatever, unless I'm coming there for one thing. But I'm going to go seek out the person then. Just tell me where brand XYZ flavor MYP is. And that isn't generally the case. So I like to let people come in, have a few minutes, get situated, and then it's really great if you can kind of be in the aisle, straightening cans, facing product, whatever you're doing, to be able to strike up a conversation of, so what kind of kid do you have?
Yeah.
I have a lab. Oh, you better have a picture on that phone. Do you have a picture on your phone that I can see? Yes, let me find it, and they're like, okay. And they find it, and usually it's a screensaver. Um, but it's great because then you start the conversation without making it transactional. And that's the biggest thing I see. That's the biggest change I have seen in the last 5 years is there is less relationship focus, more transactional focus. And
Right.
the they have it backwards, because if you create the relationship, you create people who want to support you, want to buy from you, want to be in your store, want to come talk to you, want to find out more, feel like, who do I ask about this? I know, I'll go over there and see what they can tell me, without being made to feel stupid or wondering whether or not it's the right information. And even if you wonder if it's the right information, you have a basis now that you can take that information and you can go back and research it to find out if it's true. That was my favorite thing to do, was to write things down for people.
Yeah.
Don't take my word for it. You can go research this. These are the things that you want to look for. You go take a look at it and you come back. And people would be like, okay. It was amazing to me that people did that. 2 or 3 days later, they come back and said, okay, I have a list of questions. Do you have time? You
Yeah.
bet. And then we go through that, and the trust that you build and the confidence that they get from their interactions with you and in your place of business, you can't fake that. So
Yeah.
if you don't focus on the transaction and you focus on the relationship, the transactions come
Right.
automatically.
Well, and I love that. I've been in sales all my life, and
Me too.
I the product's the product, right?
Right.
Obviously, it's there. It's a solution to some issue, but to your point, you've got to, is your issue going to be solved by this product? And if I don't know anything about it, I don't know anything about you, your pet, your etc. Because sometimes it's, to your point, I've got a lab, a lot of labs out there. Okay. I travel and I'm on the road a lot. Okay. Now that adds another layer to the story. And as you were just saying that, it's like, oh, show me the picture. Oh, you see the dog, you get a deeper connection. And we all want to do business with people, not only that we trust, but make us feel good for doing
Right.
business. Everything costs more these days. Doesn't matter what day it is, it costs more typically than it did in previous days, right? So you want to feel good about it. And it's that old, cheers type thing. You walk in and everybody knows your name.
Right.
I can say, because I stood in your store and I've stood in other successful stores. And by the way, I've seen it even happen at big box stores, because
Yep.
there are good staffs that genuinely care, get to know the community, and they'll be, oh, hey, how, and so this is a universal truth. If you, as you said, focus on the relationship, understanding the need, the desire, the want, the transactions come.
But you can't get lazy about it either, because the everybody knows your name kind of thing. That, I recently worked for a chain, and it was a very common thing. Same customers come in, they have a relationship, but nobody branches beyond what their normal thing is.
Sure.
So let's say the client's coming in for grooming. Client comes in, drops the dog off for grooming. There's not really a whole lot of conversation other than what you did over the weekend and that kind of thing. Um, maybe you say, when's the last time, Fifi had blood tests? That kind of thing. Oh, what did they say? Anything going on? Because kids get older, and when you're grooming a kid, you need to know about anything. So it's a good segue to, oh, well, my dog wasn't, I had to cancel that appointment because she didn't feel good. Oh no, tell me what's going on. There's none
Yeah.
of the, and then thinking about, oh, for something like that, maybe we could avoid that in the future. Let me show you
Sure.
this. And
Yeah.
and just continuing conversations outside of the normal. We get lazy and we get stuck in a rut because it's the easy thing to do. And we get stuck in the, well, I'm already charging whatever the grooming fee is, you know, and maybe they'll buy a treat or something like that. But there's never any, I also hate the upsell. I hate the obvious upsell.
Sure.
There are a lot of ways to upsell without it looking like an upsell. And the psychology also of doing exactly the opposite, when somebody comes up and they've got 6 different supplements, you should be saying, whoa, wait a minute. Instead of
Right.
looking at $20 a supplement times six, oh, I'd rather go, tell me what's going on. And let's look at this one thing at a time. because
Okay.
I'm in it for the long-term
Yeah.
customer, not the immediate customer. And I don't want them just coming in. I want confidence and trust built so that no matter what is going on, I'm the go-to person. And that's gone in so many ways and at so many levels. Everything used to be an onion, and it's not anymore. It's an onion ring at
Yeah.
best. And I'm disappointed in that. It hurts my soul because if you're in the pet industry, I feel like you should be in it for the pet, and the rest of it comes automatically. And
Yeah.
you can always buy a product cheaper somewhere else without fail. So, what are you going to create that makes a person come to you? The relationship, not the
Yeah.
transaction.
And I think that to your point of this is, just it's hard to say because the pet world has been that safe space for so many of us to get away from the business, the cold corporate approaches and things like that. And yet, you're right, it has crept in, and in part, a lot of mergers and acquisitions, a lot of, hey, we've got to stretch every dollar to equal $5. That's up and down. That doesn't matter who you are. At the end of the day, and that used to be, I'm going to own it. That was one of my biggest complaints when I first got into the business side of the pet world, that too many folks are focused on the passion side and not the business side. You got to have that balance. And now I feel we've swung back to the other side where it's all business, very little of the passion that drove us, which is really remarkable because if you look at it, the spending and all the other things that continue to increase because people are doing so much more for their pets, but they're looking to accomplish more. And I love when you said the bringing up the 6 supplements. I've been involved with many of the supplement makers out there, and I will say it's really interesting because there are thousands of different formulations, and you'd go, "There's no need for thousands." Actually, there is a need, but that need is very minute, and the smart business person is addressing that for that specific one and able to handle it. But when you're overloading and you're overloading, it's just like with the toys, and this one's indestructible. Well, I'm not sure we're looking at the same dictionary because indestructible means they're going to have it forever and not, well, it's going to last for, until they lose interest in it. I actually had someone tell me that in the toy, and I was like, that is a horrible marketing.
I've never
Like,
heard that.
yeah, yeah, that was their definition of your pet will lose interest in it long before they would ever
What a
destroy it.
selling
I was like,
point.
wow, okay, that's unique, right? And by the way, that maker sold a lot. So you can say that's awful, Rob. It is awful. From the passionate side of Rob, from the business standpoint, I'll be like, well, they sold a lot, so
I
clearly it
know,
resonated.
but you could say that
But
about everything. Everything is
well,
that way.
I'm sure our podcast right now, there may be a few folks going, Rob, I'm right there. Get to the point. But so let me just say, from the standpoint of, because what generated this for me was we're both in a lot of groups, and we get asked the question quite a bit. Hey, I'm really trying to hang on. I'm trying to make that new iteration, and where do I go for the next 2 to 3 years? And so as I look and I listen, and you look and you listen, and I ping you all the time, and we ping others in the industry, the question really came back down to, is being an independent a losing battle unless you're in a remote area? And my initial reaction was, gosh, I hope not. And then as I thought about it, I went, no, absolutely not. Because just look at the diverse other industries that are in your space. It doesn't matter if you're in a very populated space or if you're in a remote area. It comes back to what you were just referencing. And that's my point, everybody. I apologize for going on so long. But if you make yourself, you're the product. And I think that's what the stores forget. The products in your store are representative of what you are and you believe in, and the folks that shop at your store are. And so if you're the product, what are you doing to do one step better? I heard that a while ago from a speaker that I really appreciate. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to, you just have to do one step better than your competition, than your next, person that they can drive over to, or they can just pop online and go, here and that. And we didn't really talk about the online thing. We'll save that for another one because I know we have, but I want to get your closing thoughts on that particular question that we got. Is there a pathway for the independents in this new reality?
I think there is, but they have to set themselves apart. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they interpret that as they have to watch everything that their competition is doing. I never cared what my competition was doing. It didn't matter to me. I was too focused on what I was doing, what I wanted to carry, who my customers were, what their needs were, what our philosophy was. And it didn't matter to me what anybody else's was. So you have to set yourself apart from everybody else without micromanaging or micro scrutinizing, I guess, what it is that they're doing. You just need to focus on who you are. Who do you want to be? And I use the example of that would be I'm in a group, I'm in a retailer group where people constantly, it's almost daily, somebody will post in the group and say, what's everybody else do in regards to this? And I'm like, no, it doesn't matter what everybody else does. What difference does it make? You know, invest a little bit if you really think that's the way you want to go. Don't buy into an ISO. Start off with something small, test it and see how it's going to work for you. And then you do you. It doesn't matter what everybody else does because your demographic is yours. Where you are is unique to you. I had a lot of stores close to me, and still, my demographic was my demographic. It didn't
Right.
matter to what everybody else did. So it's important that you focus on your philosophy, who you want to be, concentrate on making that the best that it can be and improving it all the time and just moving forward. The other things, the operational things that you have to deal with, distributors that are closing down or getting bought up, fewer and fewer products, the direct to consumer, which by the way, direct to consumer is not a bad thing. The
Right.
the relationship has to be one of, and I maintained this the whole time that I had my store. I don't care if you want to sell to big box. I don't care if you want to sell to direct to consumer. You need to make me competitive.
Yep.
So I don't care. You have a business to run. You have to grow your business. And if you think that's your path forward, it isn't for me to say. But if you want me to continue with your product, you need to make me competitive. You need to make it worth my client coming to me to get the product and not going a half a mile down the road to a big box store to get it for 50 cents to a dollar or whatever cheaper. I need to be able to be at least at their pricing, if not better.
Right.
And that was my
And
only criteria.
yeah, and that's a great one. We're going to do that one very shortly because I think that's a great call out. Um, Whether it's direct to consumer, a competitor, et cetera, some of these strategies, they start with an understanding in that first meeting. If I'm considering taking on your product, it's got to serve me as much as it serves my clients and these beautiful beings that we're all here for. So, on that, let me go ahead and say thank you for this wonderful Practical Pet Business Edition chat.
This
I
was
love it.
fun.
I want to make sure those out there, we'd love to answer more of your questions. We're seeing a number of questions in all these groups that we're in, but send us your specific ones. We'd love to answer them. Practicalpetchat@gmail.com. Practicalpetchat@gmail.com. We're going to do a lot more of these because we know we want you to succeed.
We
We've
love
been
the
there with
business.
you. And we're still there with you in different ways and things. So long story short, thank you for joining us again on the Practical Pet Chat Business Edition. We're going to have another one of these weekly. I know that, Lorin, you've committed to, 73 episodes a month at this point? Maybe not.
Maybe not
At
quite
least
that
weekly.
many.
Yeah. But I know your insights, and I also want to send a shout out to all the folks that you and I will ping and talk to about these things as well. Thank you to all of you. Some of you are probably listening to this, watching this. Thank you. Your voice comes out in hopefully many of the things that we share as well. So we're all in this together. Have a great week. Go be successful. Take inventory of what you're doing this week to be successful, and let's see how we can help you out. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.